Hello, good morning, and welcome to a new trend in English drama. For the past few classes, we had been learning about new trends, or what we call the experimental theatre. So, there are many movements which are actually included in this experimental theatre. We have already seen expressionism and epic theatre, and also avant-garde, and we have a few more coming into that category. And today we have got the angry young men. The angry young men were a group of mostly working and middle class British playwrights and novelists who became prominent in the 1950s. The group's leading members included John Osborne and Kingsley Amis. So it started in the 1950s, 20th century, almost the middle of 20th century. And we have got two playwrights mainly. Their names are John Osborne and Kingsley Amis. The phrase was originally coined by the Royal Court Theatre's press officer to promote John Osborne's 1956 play Look Back in Anger. So the phrase angry young men was actually started or coined by the press officer of Royal Court Theatre. He did it in order to promote John Osborne's play titled Look Back in Anger. So that is the etymology of this phrase, how it started. Following the success of the Osborne play, the label was later applied by British media to describe young British writers who were characterized by disillusionment with traditional English society. So we have got a word which is actually the trademark of angry young men, and the word is disillusionment, and in Malayalam we will call it as mohabhangam. There are many terms used as substitute for this term. One is dissatisfaction, and another term is resentment, frustration. So these are some of the terms used instead of disillusionment. That means the playwrights especially who write this, they are actually representing a group of people, maybe the young generation of that time, who are actually very unhappy with the situation or the society at that time, especially after the Second World War. Their impatience and resentment were especially aroused by what they perceived as the hypocrisy and mediocrity of the upper and middle classes. So the young generation especially, they resented, they hated, or they almost revolted against the hypocrisy of the society. Hypocrisy means kapatyam, and mediocrity means actually samanyatvam or idattram. That means neither good nor bad. So the hypocrisy and mediocrity of the upper and middle classes. That means it is a kind of revolt or resentment of the lower class people against the apathy, let's say, or disinterest of the upper and middle classes, especially towards the lower class people. They shared an outspoken irreverence for the British class system, its traditional network of pedigreed families, and the elitist Oxford and Cambridge universities. So all these angry young men, or the playwrights of such work, they had something in common, that is, they were outspoken against the class system prevalent at that time. They were very outspoken, that means speaking loudly without fear. Irreverence means lack of respect. In Malayalam is another. So they didn't respect the class system, they were against it, because there were a group of people, the elite, the aristocrats, who took pride in themselves that they belonged to a particular family or royal family or high class society. And also the people who came out of these two universities, definitely they must have been among the elite. So there was a kind of a resentment and hatred against this the privileged class. That is expressed through this play called Angry Young Men. They showed an equally uninhibited disdain for the drabness of the post-war welfare state. So uninhibited means without any control. Disdain means hatred or dislike. Drabness means like an interest. That means the welfare state which they claim to be looking after the welfare of the people, actually that is not being very effective, because there were classes, some people were enjoying all the comforts and luxuries of life, while the low class people were suffering. So they were not happy with that system that was existing. And the writings frequently expressed raw anger and frustration. The post-war reforms failed to meet exalted aspirations for genuine change. So they thought that after the war, there will be a lot of reforms in the society, and there will be equality, justice and all that, but their expectations were not fulfilled. So naturally the people became very frustrated, very angry with the whole system. The trend that was evident in John Wayne's novel Hurry On Down and in Lucky Jim by Kingsley Amis was crystallized in 1956 in the play Look Back in Anger. So you find this play Look Back in Anger is actually the epitome or example of this trend, that is Angry Young Men. So this Hurry On Down and also Lucky Jim, both were novels, but drama came only in 1956 with Look Back in Anger. By the time Sir Laurence Olivier played the leading role in Osborne's second play, The Entertainer, the Angry Young Men were acknowledged as the dominant literary force of the decade. So by the second play by Osborne, that is The Entertainer, which came out in 1957, this trend was established and people acknowledged it, accepted it as the major literary force of that particular decade. The novels and plays typically feature a rootless lower middle or working class male protagonist who views society with scorn and sardonic humour and may have conflicts with authority, but who is nevertheless preoccupied with the quest for upward mobility. So you find in almost all these plays and novels, the lower middle class or working class who is definitely unhappy with the upper classes or middle class. Rootless means actually economically backward, that's the meaning here. So the hero, a male protagonist, he looks at society with scorn, with hatred, sardonic humor. Sardonic means actually sarcastic, പുച്ഛിക്കുന്ന അല്ലെങ്കിൽ പരിഹസിക്കുന്ന എന്നാണ് എൻ്റെ അർത്ഥം, sardonic humor. So there is another technique used in this place, humor. which is actually insulting or trying to scorn. Scorn means hate or even insult, and may have conflicts with authority. Conflicts means kind of not in good term. They cannot accept the authority, but at the same time he is busy trying to move upward. Though he is unhappy with the upper classes, ultimately his aim is to reach that level. That is what he is trying to do. A major concern in angry young men movement writings is the dissatisfaction of the lower class towards the established socio-political system, which inequitably valued the middle and upper classes and fiercely criticized their hypocrisy. So this is the trend in every angry young man movement writing. So the unhappiness of this lower class towards the upper class or even the political or social system, which did not really bother about the lower class. They only valued the middle and the upper classes. And so naturally they criticized the hypocrisy of the upper classes or the middle classes. Hypocrisy means actually kapatyam. Another frequent subject in this age is the depiction of abject position of the youth in society. Abject means very poor. In Malayalam we can call it heenamaya or hopeless. So the youth, the young generation, they do not have a job and all that. So the situation of the young men were very bad. The writers often portrayed the central hero being disillusioned with life and dissatisfied with job and a society where he is unfit and deprived of normal rights. So usually the central character of the play is a young man who is disillusioned, unhappy, desperate because he is not able to find a job and he is considered as unfit and he doesn't have normal human rights. Angry young men literature strongly revolted against all the accepted norms and ideals. So naturally they were against all kinds of political or religious setup. They were against all accepted norms. Norms means actually the traditionally accepted rules and also the ideals of that particular society. Typically the hero is a rootless, lower middle class or working class male psyche with a university degree. So this hero will be educated but he is from a lower middle or working class. Here psyche means actually the person only, that is what meaning here, male person. He expresses his dissatisfaction towards social ills with excessive anger and sardonic humour. So he is expressing his dissatisfaction, his frustration towards the social evils, especially inequality or exploitation, and he uses his anger through sardonic or insulting humour. So his aim is definitely insulting the high class or the upper class, the elite. He often indulges in adultery and inebriation to escape from complexities of life. So this hero, he goes into some unlawful actions or almost all criminal tendency, like going into adultery, that means illegal sex, and inebriation means drunkenness, alcohol. So in order to escape the problems of life, he is taking shelter in sex and alcohol. Here complexities means the problems of life. In fine, he is the very epitome of a frustrated, post-World War second generation. So the hero of the play is a model of a frustrated means disappointed, desperate, post-World War II generation. So he represents a young man who is really unhappy with the social system and norms and all that. So he is a rebel ultimately. John Wayne, English poet, novelist and critic, portrayed the repressions of society in lively comic situations. Repression means actually suppression or adichamarthal. He is assumed to have showed angry young man temperament in his first novel, Hurry On Down. So, John Wayne also is another angry young man trend, playwright, writer, and in his novel Hurry On Down, he expressed more or less same trend. It's a comic, picaresque story about an unsettled university graduate who sought to reject the standards of conventional society. The word picaresque means fiction dealing with adventures of rogues. Rogues means actually criminals. So he is actually trying to portray young men who turn to crime because they don't have a job and they are going against all the norms and standards of a conventional or traditional society. They are trying to break all the rules. Kingsley Amis, English novelist, undertakes a humorous critical survey of the post-World War II British society. Amis' first novel was Lucky Jim, which according to many reflects the angry young man temperament. So another writer, novelist, Kingsley Amis, in his first novel, Lucky Jim, also trying to portray a young man of this particular nature. This particular book influenced a number of British playwrights and novelists, including John Osborne and Alan Sillitoe. So, many of the angry young men playwrights were influenced by Kingsley Amis' novel Lucky Jim. Now we come to the main playwright. His name is John Osborne, 1929 to 1994. He is an English playwright and motion picture screenwriter whose plays enact sharp criticism of post-World War II British life through outbursts of abusive languages. So here this particular playwright, John Osborne, is actually trying to criticize the post-World War II British society and life at that time, and he uses what you call unparliamentary or abusive language in his play. It was Osborne's debut play, Look Back in Anger, 1957, that made the angry young man authoritatively established. So it was this play titled Look Back in Anger by John Osborne. It is this particular play that established this movement with authority. In this sense, John Osborne was the most fortunate literary artist to have an age started on the basis of a single literary work. So, unparalleled in English literature, we have got a movement by just one man or just one work of a particular playwright, that is Look Back in Anger by Osborne. Among the other writers embraced in the term are the novelists John Brain, Room at the Top, and Alan Sillitoe, Saturday Night and Sunday Morning, and the playwrights Bernard Corpse, The Hamlet of Stepney Green, and Arnold Wesker, Chicken Soup with Barley. So we have got two novelists and two playwrights who are included in the group of angry young men movement. This literary movement brought a fresh concept which was totally complied with the then socio-political context. So, it was something new, a new idea which was very much in tone with the prevailing social setup. Complied means agreed with the socio-political background of that time. So, it was just a kind of reaction against the social setup of that particular time period. Though it lasted only for a short span of time, it exerted a profound impact in the field of British literature. So, it did not last long, but still it had a lasting effect in especially in English or British literature. Like the Beat movement in the United States, the impetus of the movement was exhausted in the early 1960s. So, another movement in literature which was in America is known as Beat movement. It also was more or less happening in the same time period. But again, it did not last. The impetus or the inspiration or the force behind the movement was exhausted. Exhausted means almost got over. You can say ശോഷിക്കുക അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അപജയം സംഭവിക്കുക എന്നാണ് exhausted. So, in the early 1960s, this movement came to a stop. We have the playwrights of those of that time, the angry young men. One is John Osborne. Next we have John Wayne and Kingsley Amis. So, these are the playwrights of that particular movement titled Angry Young Men. So, with that we come to the end of this trend in English drama, which is called Angry Young Men. So, thank you and goodbye till we meet again with another trend in drama.